to some frequently asked questions. So should I take the SAT, ACT, both, or neither? Again, between the SAT and ACT, it is really going to be up to student choice. Here in California, most students will take the SAT because the PSAT will be administered 10th and 11th grade. Their friends will be taking the SAT, and that is the more common test to take, but that is regional. I do have some students who just personally prefer the ACT, so they will take that exam. Should you take both or study for both? No, it is not an efficient way to use your time. Choose one and try to stick with it. I have had some students switch in the middle of studying, but that is a rare occasion. As schools are showing test optional and as the UCs are test blind, some students will ask, do I need to take this test at all? If you are only applying to UC schools and Cal State schools, then no, you do not need to take it. But I would also recommend that you open up your options to private and out-of-state schools, mainly because the UCs are extremely competitive. If your goal is to go to UC Berkeley, UCLA, UC Irvine, San Diego, Davis, or Santa Barbara, regardless of your GPA, there is a chance that you might not get accepted. So because of that, I do recommend private and out-of-state schools as options. So just answer the SAT, ACT for UCs. Why do I need to take a test for test optional schools? The optional is not really optional. As we go into different schools, let me see. Yes, as we go into different schools on the next, I believe the next slide, we will actually look at the numbers of how optional this really is. How many times can I take the SAT, ACT? Theoretically, you could take it as many times as you want, but most students will take it anywhere between 3 to 5 times. That is the most common. Okay, what is super scoring? Super scoring is when you take the best scores of each section and add it up to a composite score. For example, if you took the SAT 3 times, one time you got a 700 on math, the next time you got a 600, next time you got a 650. When a school super scores, they will only take the 700. And then they will do the same for your English. Regardless of when you took that test, they will just take your highest score. Most colleges and universities will super score. So there are some strategic ways to approach this test. When should I take the SAT, ACT? The latest that you can take it for most schools will be October of your senior year. And I believe November for the ACT. SAT will be October, ACT I believe will be November. That is to get in with regular decision deadlines. I highly recommend students take it earlier. Most of our students who are preparing for these tests, depending on the classes again that they've taken at school, will take it up to a year earlier, which is generally between the end of sophomore year and the start of junior year. The reason why I recommend that for a lot of students is because then they do not need to worry about the SAT during junior and senior year, which tends to be the most difficult. Remember, SAT, ACT, the math covered is up to Algebra 2 with a little bit of trigonometry. So for students who have finished Algebra 2 and who are currently doing pre-calculus, you have technically learned all of the math you need for these exams. So math-wise, you are prepared for it. I have some students who are very advanced in math, so they might be doing calculus junior year and then moving up to like multivariable calculus in senior year. That means the math that they need for SAT, ACT, they have not touched for 2, 3, 4 years. In that case, they've actually forgotten quite a lot. So taking the test slower will actually hurt them, even though their math is much more advanced than it needs to be. Okay, when should I start preparing for the SAT, ACT? I will say the sooner the better. SAT, ACT are exams that are supposed to test what you learned in high school as well as if you are ready for college. I tell families that if you study the SAT, ACT, if you start practicing before even you start high school, the more you learn from the SAT, ACT practice, the easier high school will be. In terms of the English section, if you have strong grammar, strong vocabulary, strong reading comprehension, your high school English classes will be a lot easier. Your history classes will be easier. Some of your science classes will be easier. Same thing applies for math. If you have practiced and reviewed your math classes in school will be easier. And then, of course, you will do better on the test later on. So there really is no bad time to start for the SAT, ACT. And honestly, I have seen some students who have hit their score goals as early as 9th and 10th grade. So again, once they hit their score goals, they don't need to worry about this test anymore. Okay, how much impact does a perfect score have on college admissions? Getting a 1600 or a 36 on the ACT, that is kind of a goal for a lot of students. I will tell students the actual impact on college admissions is not that much. Again, when we look at percentiles, if you were to get a 1550 or higher, most schools will look at that the same way as they do a 1600. To get a 1600 on a test, sometimes it comes down to luck and just getting questions that fit your knowledge profile, and school admissions understand that. What would really be impressive if a student takes the SAT multiple times and gets a 1600 multiple times. And I think that would be impressive, but just doing it once, in some cases, not worth it. I have students, again, who going from like a 1580 to 1600, the amount of time that you need to put into studying for that, in most cases, I will say is not worth their time. But depending on the school you want to go to, we will kind of look at the percentiles that you need. Okay, what is the PSAT and do the scores matter? The PSAT, also known as the pre-SAT or the practice SAT, however you want to say it, is just an easier version of the SAT. So as I said, the SAT will cover material up to 11th and 12th grade, so high school material, and that is on the national level. The PSAT is for 10th and 11th graders, so some of the hardest questions will be removed. The score cap is at 1520. And then there is also a PSAT 8-9, which is for 8th and 9th graders, and that score is capped at 1440. The score you get at that grade level for the PSAT is just supposed to gauge what you will most likely get when you take the SAT as a senior. The thing with the PSAT, is that there is the National Merit Scholarship, which is for 11th graders. And if you score within the highest percentile in your state, you can qualify for that scholarship as well as the medal. Okay. So what score do I need for a top 25 school? So 98th percentile or higher is the median. So this is the average. 50% of students who go to these schools will have 98th percentile or higher. So for SAT, we are thinking anywhere from about 1500 to 1600. Again, 1600 is fairly rare, but you would want to be around 1560. So this would include all of the Ivy Leagues, schools that are similar, such as MIT, Caltech, Stanford. You are going to be wanting to hit the mid 1500s. That will be your goal. On ACT, you are looking for 34 to 36. That will be your goal for the SAT. And then the percentiles are here. So next question, what score do I need for a top 50 school? So this would be schools from like 26 to 50. So again, if you are on the top percentiles, you are doing fairly well. You are on the top end of things. The mid-level would be within the 96th percentile. So about 1450 is what I would tell most students and up. for the SAT, and then about a 32 or 33 and up for the ACT. This is pretty common for top 50 schools. So top 50 schools, well, top 25 schools will be anywhere from like Harvard, Princeton, Yale, down to University of Michigan, down to University of Virginia, down to what other ones, like Vanderbilt would be those schools. Top 50 schools towards the lower end would be schools like Tufts, Northeastern, as well as NYU and Purdue. So those are the schools that you are kind of thinking of in that range.